Okay, well, good morning, everybody. A quorum is present, so we'll begin today's hearings. Welcome to the Committee on Veterans and Legal Affairs. We are assembled electronically today for the purposes of inviting public comment on legislation pending before us. Before we get started with today's agenda, we'll have the committee members introduce themselves, and we'll begin with the House Chair, Chiazzo.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Chris, good morning, everybody. Chris Chiazzo, House District 28, West Scarborough.
Hey, Senator Farron.
Good morning, everybody. My name's Brad Farron. I represent Senate District 3, which is the majority of Somerset County in the town of Rome in Kennebec County. Thank you.
Senator.
You're choppy, Mr. Speaker.
Oh, am I? Sorry. Representative Tuttle?
Yep, Representative John Tuttle, District 18, a part of Sanford. And Mr. Chair, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the passing of John Delahanty, good friend of mine. John was involved with the Maine legislature for close to 40 years. He worked for Pierce Atwood. He was a 1966 graduate of Lewiston High School, where he was an all-state tackle and set the record for most points scored in field goals and extra points in Lewiston's history. His records weren't broke for 40 years. He went on to do the same thing at Bowdoin College and was invited to attend professional tryouts for kicking, but he was a lieutenant in the U.S. Army, and he did his duty and went to Vietnam and came back home and married his wife for 43 years. He was a great guy and will be greatly missed, Mr. Chairman. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention his memory. Rest in paradise, my friend.
Yeah, thanks, Representative Tuttle. I was also sad to see this about Mr. Delahanty over the weekend. To his families, for sure, he was a fixture at the State House. Representative Wood.
Hi, I'm Barb Wood, and I represent House District 38, which is the western end of the peninsula in Portland. Thanks.
Okay, Representative Riley.
I am Representative Riley. I represent House District 34, which is part of Westbrook.
Okay, Representative Doloff.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning. Representative Joe Sandolph, District 115 in the Western Mountains of Roxbury, Rumford, Milton Township, Bryant's Pond, and Sumner.
Okay, Representative Supika.
I am Laura Supika, and I represent District 126, a portion of Bangor.
Okay, Representative McCrate.
Well, West Bath and part of Brunswick in the house. Internet issues here too, so I switched to hotspot. Hope it's working.
Yeah, the same thing's happening to me right now. So I'll quickly run through the usual hearing information, and then if I'm breaking up, I'll turn it over to the House Chairman and reset my internet. Yeah, as a reminder, if you committee members would like to put their titles on their Zoom name, we can. It'll help. Okay, I think Representative Chiazzo, if you want to take over, I think I'm breaking up, so I'll hand it over to you if you're good to go.
Yeah, I'll take it. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will go through and read the public hearing script. So good morning. Senator Lucchini kicked this off already. Just a reminder, this is currently being live streamed on the committee's YouTube channel. This means that anyone who is a participant in the meeting via Zoom can be seen and also heard if their microphone is unmuted. People on the Zoom meeting waiting to testify cannot be seen or heard until they are called upon to speak. This meeting will be recorded and available to view on the committee's YouTube channel soon after this meeting is concluded. We've already gone through introductions. So for those who are participating, if the name on your Zoom square is not the name used to register to testify, it may be a bit challenging for us to identify you. For example, if you registered as John Smith or Mary Jones and your Zoom screen says iPhone 6 or Dad's laptop, it may take extra effort to get you into our virtual podium, so please be patient. You should also know that it may momentarily appear as though you've been dropped from the meeting when we call upon you to speak. It takes a second or two, but rest assured you will reappear and then you'll be able to provide your testimony. So let's see, just a reminder to committee members, the use of the Zoom chat function. This function is not to be used for substantive discussion by anyone. You should know that the chat window can be viewed by any person taking part in this meeting as a participant. Participants include members of the committee, staff, and any members of the public during the time they have been promoted to participant for the purpose of providing testimony to the committee. All questions to persons testifying will be made through the chair. And for each bill being heard today, I or my co-chair will call upon sponsors and co-sponsors to speak first. When called upon, you will be promoted from attendee to the participant. Any presentation by sponsors or co-sponsors will call upon members of the public based on how they've registered to testify, either for the bill, against the bill, or neither for nor against the bill, but wishing to provide information. When you're called upon, I will ask you to state your name, your place of residence, and the organization you represent, if any. After you're done speaking and there are no more questions from the members, I or my co-chair will return you to the attendee and call upon the next person registered to testify. When you are called upon, please make sure that your microphone is not on mute. Let's see. We talked about live streaming. All right, I think we're good to go. So we will begin by open up the public hearing on, bear with me for a second, LD 407, which is an act to improve education funding through lottery proceeds. And I see the bill sponsor, Representative Alley, is in the attendee. Let me move him up. And Representative Alley, when you are ready, please feel free to go ahead and start. Representative Alley, if you can hear me, you're muted. We see you on the screen. We don't see your video, but you're muted.
How's that?
We can hear you, but we can't see you.
Well, that's okay, as long as you can hear me. Okay.
There we are.
Okay. I'll start over again then. Testimony of Representative Robert Alley Sr. introducing LD 407, an act to improve education funding through lottery proceeds, February 22nd, 2021. Good morning, Senator Lucchini, Representative Casio, and members of the Committee on Veterans and Legal Affairs. I'm Representative Alley, and I represent 11 communities in Washington County. I am here today to introduce LD 407, an act to improve education funding through lottery proceeds. Current lottery games in Maine are very popular. The lottery has been around in Maine for a long time, going back to when it was first approved in 1974 in a referendum. In addition to prizes paid to people who purchase tickets and commissions to businesses that sell tickets, Maine's lotteries provide over $50 million per year for the state general fund. Over the the years, the number of games has grown. First, it was just the main lottery. Then came the Tri-State Lottery, Powerball, Mega Millions, and a variety of other games. We even have a special lottery that was set up to benefit the Maine Outdoor Heritage Fund. This bill proposes to set up another game along the same lines as the one that supports the Maine Outdoor Heritage Fund to benefit public education in the state. This is not new. Numerous other states specifically dedicate some of or all of their lottery proceeds to educational funding. I first got the idea from someone who has been, who has seen how much this is guaranteed to support education in Georgia, where their lotteries supports the states of pre-K through and a host of college scholarships. This is the sort of model I envision here when a new lottery game set up to support scholarships in both the Maine Community College system and the University of Maine system. This game generates approximately $700,000 per year. Assuming the new game performs similarly, that would be enough to start in a very handsome scholarship fund for deserving Maine students. A college education is more important than ever for lifelong success, and yet it's getting harder and harder to afford, especially for low-income families. The scholarship made possible by this fund could be limited to Maine residents for use at Maine community colleges and universities, and conditional upon the students continuing to live and work in Maine for a period after graduation. In this way, this fund could help Maine. Well, I've been cut off. I had it in there, but that's pretty much the center of it right there. So.
All right. Well, thank you, Representative Alley. Appreciate that introduction. Any questions, Representative Tuttle?
Yes, Representative Alley, I appreciate your bill as a point of history. When the lottery was first going to be adopted, it was sold that 100% of the revenue was going directly to education. And unfortunately, that never, after it did pass, that never happened. So I think that in this session, when we review where funding should go, particularly with the 55% funding for education, which was promised about a decade ago, I think we really need to look at your bills and others, because initially 100% of the lottery was supposed to go to education and never was.
Thank you, Representative Tuttle. Any other questions for Representative Alley as the sponsor?
Robert, get back to that.
Well, Chris, ask him what the weather's like up there.
Well, he's off camera. So Representative Alley, I muted you when you were off camera. My apologies. You can unmute now if you'd like. Oh, you're still muted, sir. Sorry. No, unfortunately I can't unmute you, Representative. There you go. There you go. Perfect.
Okay, thank you. I'm not too hip on this stuff.
We'll get there. We'll get there for sure.
Okay.
Representative Dolph.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Representative Alley, are you looking to create like a new instant game ticket, and that specific ticket is what's designated to go just for education?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions from the committee? All right. Seeing none, thank you, Representative Alley. We appreciate you kicking us off this morning.
Well, thank you, Rep. Chris.
Thanks for joining us.
Now I gotta get back my other one that I just got out of to get over here.
We're doing a lot of bouncing around these days for sure. So, you know, we'll get it. We'll get it done. We'll get it done for sure.
Okay.
All right. So I have one person on the list who's scheduled to testify, and that is Director Minio from Bablo. And so I will promote Director Minio in, and he is listed as, bear with me for a second, he's listed as against. So let me get Director Minio promoted. And just as a reminder, my apologies, I forgot to mention we are keeping a clock today, so testimonies are limited to 3 minutes. So I will do my best to stay on top of that as well. So Director Minio, whenever you're ready, take it away.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Good. Thank you. Senator Lucchini, Representative Cayazzo, members of the Joint Standing Committee on Veterans and Legal Affairs. My name is Greg Minio, and I'm the Director of Bureau of Alcoholic Beverages and Lottery Operations, and I'm providing the following written testimony in opposition to LD 407. While LD 407 is a concept draft, the bill's summary indicates that it proposes the creation of a new lottery game with the proceeds dedicated to support education funding. Since its inception in 1974, the Maine Lottery has transferred over $1.54 billion to the state's general fund, over $64.5 million in fiscal year 2020. Since 1996, the Maine State Lottery has also offered a variety of instant ticket games to specifically benefit the Maine Outdoor Heritage Fund. In fiscal year 20, Maine Lottery transferred $651,000 to the Maine Outdoor Heritage Fund for a total of $21.9 million in the partnership's history. That being said, although there have been numerous bills over the last 25 years that, like LD 407, propose creation of a new game and dedicating its revenue to a specific purpose, the Outdoor Heritage Fund game remains the only one of its kind. Maine Lottery is proud of the funding generated to support critical conservation and wildlife projects throughout Maine, but in recent years, player interest in the Maine Outdoor Heritage game has waned, and the dedicated revenue stream become less dependable. In our experience, developing a new themed game would not generate significant new lottery participation and in turn, new revenue for our dedicated cause. It is preferable that the Maine Lottery proceeds continue to flow to the general fund. By virtue of education's share of the overall state budget, a significant portion of all lottery proceeds transferred to the general fund goes to fund education, far more than could be generated by a dedicated game. Additionally, Maine Lottery staff are best able to maximize profits for the state when they have command of the full complement of games offered by the Maine Lottery. Thank you for allowing me to testify before the committee today, and I'm happy to respond to any questions. And I might just mention one detail that I just received recently, that the dedicated revenue from the general fund to education, I just happen to get this, K through 12 is about 35%, and K to 16 is 42.7%, just for the committee's information. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Minio. That was pretty much spot on 3 minutes. Well done. Any questions from the committee? Representative McCray.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Director Minio, could you just repeat those last figures? I didn't quite catch up with you. K through 12. Oops, you're muted.
There we go. 35.4% for K through 12 and 42.7% for K through 16.
And that's specific proceeds that go into the general fund?
From the general fund to education. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Representative McCray. Representative Wood, did you have a question? You're muted, I'm sorry.
I had the same question as Representative McCray.
All right.
So I'm good. Thanks.
Excellent. Any other questions for Director Minio while we have him here? All right, seeing none. Thank you, Director Minio. We appreciate your participation this morning. There's nobody else on the list ahead of time. There are 3 attendees in the meeting, in the attendees group. If anybody else wants to testify on this bill, please raise your virtual hand and we'll call on you. Okay, seeing none, then we will close the public hearing for LD 407. And I will turn it back over to Senator Lucchini.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and apologies for that. I hope my internet's working a little better now. So next up, we have 3 different bills. Actually, I sponsor all 3. So I think what we'll do is we'll combine the hearings on 2 of these, which are related to restaurant waivers. So we'll combine the public hearing on LD 306, an act to temporarily waive certain requirements for relicensing for restaurants that serve liquor. And we'll combine that with 378, which is an act to temporarily waive renewal fees for on-premises retail liquor licenses. And so I guess for the bills, I'll turn it back over to the House Chairman, and I'll start with LD 306, and then after, if it's good, we have the Senate President like to testify on that, and then I can get back to the second bill if that works for you.
We'll make him wait, Mr. Chair. I know him.
Representative Tuttle's motion is not in order. Go ahead and proceed, Senator Lucchini.
Okay. Great. Well, good morning, Representative Cayazzo and distinguished members of the Joint Standing Committee on Veterans and Legal Affairs. My name is Louis Lucchini. I represent most of Hancock County in the state Senate, and I'm here to present LD 306, an act to temporarily waive certain requirements for restaurants that sell liquor. This bill was brought to me by President Jackson, and it's relating to a constituent issue that he had locally, and we wanted to try to rectify this quickly as it kind of pertains to business difficulties that have been had during the pandemic. So as Janet provided for us by email, there are many types of liquor licenses for restaurants and bars that serve alcohol for on-premises consumption. Many of these licenses come with a food sale requirement, and they require that a certain percentage of revenues be from food. If a restaurant seeks to be relicensed and the percentage of revenues from food does not hit the required mark, their applications can be denied. So as we all know, the pandemic has completely changed the landscape for restaurants. Almost a year now, dating back to when they were shut down, the reduced capacity requirements, curfews, and just the general decrease in tourism that we've seen. So the shift to takeout sales has the potential to skew the normal operations for restaurants across the state. And so I've submitted this bill for Senate President Jackson to ensure that a licensee during their relicensing process this year cannot be denied a license simply because their food sales did not hit the required percentage. This is especially important for restaurants that are licensed in conjunction with a manufacturing facility, like a brew pub, as they're called sometimes. Even prior to the pandemic, we've run into issues on how to account for takeout alcohol sales from those facilities because they're jointly a manufacturer and a retailer. Obviously, the legislature never intended for a brewery or distillery's packaged product sales to be counted as part of their restaurant license. Instead, it should be considered under their manufacturing. So kind of on a separate bill over the last 2 years, Balbo's been great working with us to find a solution to this issue, but unfortunately that bill did not become law because of the early adjournment last session due to COVID. And so in that bill, we did clarify the law, which will take care of a lot of these issues and create a new grace period. But again, we haven't passed that yet. So that's why we felt this bill is extremely necessary now. So again, this bill simply waives the food requirement as a method to deny relicensure for restaurants for the remainder of this year. Because they've operated for a year under COVID restrictions, we certainly don't want to penalize restaurants whose business models have been turned upside down by the pandemic. So thank you all for considering this legislation, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Representative Tuttle.
Mr. Chair, do we know how many places this has occurred? It probably has occurred in other districts besides Senator Jackson. Maybe I imagine that Director Minio will testify, but I'd like to have that answer of how many establishments have actually been affected by this.
Yeah, I think Representative Tuttle, we're trying to get ahead of it before it happens. I don't think Bablo has refused anybody's license. And we're not yet on a year with the pandemic, so we haven't seen the repercussions of people having to shift to mostly takeout sales. So to my knowledge, and Director Minio can answer this better than me, I don't think anybody's been rejected, but we're trying to make sure that, I mean, if somebody had fallen out of line with those requirements, the Bureau would be obligated because of law to reject their license. So we want to make sure that that doesn't happen. So we're just trying to get ahead of it because business models have been completely turned upside down.
All right, thank you, Representative Tuttle. Representative Wood.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Senator Lucchini, could you repeat again about the brew pub? I get a little confused about how a brew pub is classified.
Yeah, it is kind of confusing. So there's no technical license for a brew pub. It's if you're a manufacturer of alcohol, like a brewery or a distillery, you're allowed to have only one restaurant license. And so that is often called a brew pub because it's frequently attached to the brewery. But just by virtue of being attached to the brewery, we don't want that to imply that all of the brewery sales can be used against their restaurant license.
Okay.
And because if you have a massive volume of sales going out to, stores like Hannaford, then it would be very hard to hit the 10% sales food requirement because hopefully you sell a ton of stuff, in the retail market as well.
Okay, I've got it now. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Wood. Any other questions from the committee for Senator Lucchini? All right, seeing none. Thank you, Senator. Hold right there. I will actually, it looks like Senator Jackson's already in. So Senator Jackson, the floor is yours. And you're also, if you'd like to provide testimony on 378 as well, you're welcome to do that now as well.
Well, thank you, Senator Lucchini, Representative Chiazzo, members of the Joint Standing Committee on Veterans and Legal Affairs. My name is Troy Jackson, and I represent the people of Northern Aroostook County in Senate District 1. I'm here today to testify in support of LD 306, an act that temporarily waive certain requirements for relicensing for restaurants that serve liquor. And I certainly want to thank Senator Lucchini for his work on this. Obviously has a lot better grasp on the industry than I do, so I appreciate his time and effort, as I do the whole committee. Whether you're from Fort Kent or Kittery, you know that Maine is a small business state. Our small business owners take pride in their Yankee ingenuity and innovation, even in the most trying conditions. And over the last 11 months, there's no doubt that that is exactly what they've had to face. Despite these new and uncharted problems, businesses have persevered while doing their best to follow health and safety protocols to keep their employees and customers safe. The idea for this bill before us today was brought to me by my constituent, Travis Gee, at First Mile Brewing in Fort Kent. First Mile started out as a very modest operation by a group of passionate homebrewers in the area and has grown considerably since. You can now find First Mile's craft beer in restaurants and stores throughout Aroostook County. And I'm also very proud to display an empty growler of First Mile here in my office that I did not drink. It was drunk. Somebody brought it to me, so, just to be clear on that. But I do appreciate very much the work that they do in Aroostook County. Travis wrote to me last winter telling me that First Mile had been pursuing a restaurant license in addition to their licensure as a brewery. They wanted the option to put more local foods on their menu. However, in order to qualify for a restaurant license, the business must have at least 10% of its sales come from food. In the middle of an unprecedented pandemic, where indoor dining was limited, this could provide a challenge for First Mile and many other businesses around the state. Travis suggested that restaurants be able to waive this requirement during the civil emergency, which is exactly what this bill does. LD 306 would temporarily waive the requirements for food sales and only apply to the renewal of licenses that expire on or before January 1, 2022. I believe this is a common sense proposal that aims to support our restaurants who will find very creative ways to thrive and strengthen our economy as we begin to climb out of this pandemic. Like I said, I want to thank Senator Lucchini for doing the legwork on this proposal and bringing this forward. I thank the committee for your time and certainly try and answer any questions.
Sorry, thank you, Senator. Representative Tuttle.
Mr. President, good to see you again. I didn't know if you were a former member of this committee or not, Troy.
Well, thank you, Representative Tuttle. I actually was just an IFW hearing where I was a former member, and so I virtually sent them my tribute. But I am not a former member of VLA. So, but
all right. Well, I guess I struck out then, Troy. But
you all
good
deserve something for your efforts. So, as soon as we get back into a normal situation here, I promise you that I will deliver.
All right. Well, that growler sounds pretty good, Troy.
Thank you, Representative Tuttle. Senator Farron.
Yes, thank you, Chair. And President Jackson, I just wanted to echo Representative Tuttle's remarks. I think the growler would be perfect. Thank you.
Okay. Good deal, for sure.
Any other questions or requests for growlers from the Senate President? All right, seeing none. Thank you, Senator Jackson. We appreciate your time.
You too. Take care.
And I will turn it back over to Senator Lucchini if you wanted to go through 378 now.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I'll present.
Oh, sorry, Senator. Senator Farron, did you still have a question? My apologies.
No, sorry, just did not drop my hand down there.
All right. Perfect. Sorry, Senator Lucchini, please go ahead.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, so I'll move on to 378 and then we can open the hearing for both as they're both on waivers. So good morning again, Representative Chiazzo and distinguished members of the committee. My name's Louis Lucchini, represent most of Hancock County in the Maine Senate. And now I'm presenting LD 378, an act to temporarily waive renewal fees for on-premises retail liquor licenses. And so this one kind of dovetails with the previous bill. And again, as we're all aware, the pandemic has caused chaos across the entire economy, and few industries have been hit as hard as the restaurant industry. So again, they've faced mandatory closures, reduced capacity limits for almost a year, state mandated curfews, decreased tourism, hesitance by some to dine indoors. So I know restaurants are a major part of my economy locally and probably for every district for all of you. And they've struggled to stay afloat. And for most, they've experienced massive drops in revenues. So this bill seeks to provide a small measure of financial relief to the restaurant industry by waiving fees when restaurants and bars reapply for licensure this year. As we've talked about and as we work through our state budgets, we understand that controlling the sale of spirits and collecting taxes from all types of liquor provides an enormous amount of money to Maine's general fund. And I think it's important to recognize that restaurants are a key partner in establishing these profits for the state. They are the ones who do the actual sales for us. And we should acknowledge this difficult environment that they've faced and work to provide some sort of financial relief. This is just a small step in that direction. Obviously, this bill will come with a hefty price tag. But in my view, as we do partner with these businesses, I think utilizing the revenues from our overperforming liquor contract would be one option as a really appropriate potential source of funding for this initiative. So again, thank you for considering this legislation. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Senator Lucchini. Any questions from the committee? Representative Tuttle.
What's the fiscal note, Louis? Do we know?
No, we don't have I don't believe the fiscal note's been done on this yet, but I believe Bablo submitted in their testimony some numbers that we can look at.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Representative Tuttle. Any other questions from the committee? All right, seeing none.
Thank you.
We will open it up to the public hearing. So we have, for LD 306, we have one in favor. And that's Greg Dougal. I will promote Mr. Dougal into the meeting. Welcome, Mr. Dougal. You are able to proceed whenever you're ready. Actually, Mr. Dougal, if you would, before you start, are you going to give testimony on both bills or just 306?
On both.
I'm sorry?
On both, sir.
On both. Okay. Then I'll waive the 3 minutes. I'll put it up to 6. So you're not penalized for that. So
I'll be good. I'll be good with 3. Don't worry, Representative Callejo. I can get it all in there.
Well, I won't cut you off, I promise. So please proceed when you're ready.
Thank you. Senator Lucchini, Representative Callejo, distinguished members of Veteran Legal Affairs Committee. My name is Greg Dougal, and I am with Hospitality Maine, and I'm here testifying in favor of LD 306, which would waive certain requirements for relicensing for restaurants that serve liquor. We did hear a lot from both senators about this, but once again, I want to thank the committee, Senator Lucchini and Bablo, for recognizing the situation our industry finds itself in, helping to provide solutions to problems that were created through no fault of the licensee. We understand that food requirements are essential to the safe operations of liquor licensed establishments and support them, but there are times like these that we have just experienced where they cannot always be adhered to. We realize the genesis of this bill was a brewing operation with a Chapter 43 restaurant. We represent many and support this request on their behalf, but there are many other small hospitality businesses that experience disruptions in this crisis. In March, many were moved from inside service to strictly takeout to outdoor dining and then back indoors with reduced capacity, all in a matter of a few months. Some probably couldn't even tell you if they had met their minimums based on the constant modification of their business model to adhere to executive orders and to help their business survive through this almost 1 year of a pandemic. For all these businesses, we are grateful for this bill and the many others that have been introduced on behalf of the hospitality industry and other committees. Hopefully times will get better soon and the need for these types of bills will go away. No one in the industry looks for favors, just a playing field that allows for success. Pandemics have a way of changing that. So it is with this thought that we encourage the committee to vote LD 306 out of your committee, ought to pass for this temporary fix. And I really don't have to spend a whole lot of time on LD 378. It's pretty obvious what is being attempted there. Again, I want to thank you guys, Senator Lucchini and Bablo, for being really cooperative when it came to renewal of license. There were a lot of postponements that occurred based on the fact that people weren't open or that they were didn't have the capacity at that time to make that payment. $1,000 to $1,500 probably doesn't seem like a lot in the realm of business, but at this point it is a huge amount. And it will be for all those people that are involved in this. And I will tell you, I'm in the midst of a little bit of an experiment. I'm thankful that I can speak now because I have 3 computers working at the same time for 3 different committees. That is a new experience. I have never done it. I'll let you all know how it turns out. But thank you very much, and thanks for your support. And I'm happy to answer any questions, Representative.
Thank you, Mr. Dougal, and thanks for stretching the limits of our technology. That's the only way we're going to figure out if it breaks or not. So thank you for that. Any questions for the committee? All right, seeing none, we'll let you shut down at least one of the three. So thank you. We appreciate your
Thank you, sir.
participation.
Have a good day.
You too. All right, next up, we have Director Minio, and Director Minio is testifying neither for nor against on both bills. Same rules to you, sir. Please feel free to take 6 minutes. If you need more, I won't cut you off, but please try and keep it to that if you could. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Good morning again. Senator Lucchini, Representative Cayazzo, and members of the Joint Standing Committee on Veterans and Legal Affairs. My name is Greg Minio, and I'm the Director of Bureau of Alcoholic Beverages and Lottery Operations, and I'm providing the following written testimony, neither for nor against, on LD 306. Recognizing the struggles these businesses have faced this year, the Bureau has worked diligently to support the on-premises community through our guidance memos and follow-up communications through our licensing and enforcement staff. Most all on-premise establishments have a food gross sales requirement. Depending upon the type of on-premise establishment, this food gross requirement is either based on a simple 10% of all sales of the establishment or must have $20,000 to $50,000 in food gross sales, depending upon the population of the municipality in which the establishment is located. Excuse me, I won't read all the rest, but you can see very clearly that we have several different license types, iterations of what we're talking about, and they go from hotels to restaurants to Class A restaurants, Class A restaurant lounges, bowling centers, qualified caterers. So you'll see that it's pretty spread across the board. In sections 1060 through 2.3 and 1076, the statute states that the Bureau may not renew any license for the sale of liquor unless the licensee furnishes the Bureau with proof that the previous year's business conformed to the income requirements. In sections 1061 for hotels and 1073 for bowling centers, while the statute does not specifically state that the Bureau may not renew, the practice has been to treat these licensees in the same manner. The Bureau is concerned that the bill is crafted does not promote food service, which is traditionally a component of responsible beverage service. Potentially, based on this, a licensee would not see the need to provide food as part of their regular service. The Bureau would recommend amending the bill to at least require the licensee to make an attempt to comply with this food gross requirement. Our recommendation would provide the licensee a 1-year grace period to come into compliance before the Bureau would take any action on not renewing the license. A permanent change to the law would benefit licensees during the current pandemic and other future situations where meeting any food gross requirement is not achieved due to any number of factors. Our proposed language is below. If the licensee fails to meet the food requirements of this title during any non-consecutive licensure period, the licensee may be granted one additional licensure period to meet the minimum food sales requirement of this title if approved by the Bureau. The Bureau shall not unreasonably deny a license request for a waiver under this section. And of course, I'll answer any questions. And thank you for allowing me to testify today, and will certainly be available for the work session. So if it's the will of the committee, I can certainly address questions on 306, and then I can read testimony on 378, or however you see fit.
Any questions for Director Minio up till this point in the committee? All right, seeing none, then please go ahead and proceed with 378 if you'd like.
Okay, thank you. Senator Lucchini, Representative Cayazzo, members of the Joint Standing Committee on Veterans and Legal Affairs. My name is Greg Minio, and I am still the director of BABLO, and I'm providing the written testimony neither for nor against LD 378. This bill directs the Bureau not to require the payment of licensing fees for license renewals for on-premise licensees in 2021. Through last Friday, the Bureau has renewed 327 various on-premise liquor licensees to date. Until this bill becomes law, the number of renewals in this category will continue to increase in volume. The state's process for issuing refunds is a cumbersome process. There are various steps both at the Bureau and at the state's financial service center that supports the Bureau. Based on the number of refunds that will likely need to be completed, it will take a significant amount of time for staff who are already stretched to the maximum to process these refunds. The Bureau recommends amending the bill to set a date certain for when the waiver of fees will start and end. In this way, those licensees who have renewed prior to the effective date will have a fee waiver afforded to them in 2022. For example, an on-premise licensee renewed its license on January 31, 2021 and paid the required fee. Upon renewal in January of 2022, the licensing fee will be waived. Just for point of information to the committee, there was a question earlier concerning fiscal impact. We put this in as just context and perspective, and you'll see that to date in fiscal year 21, we have collected $1.7 million in licensing fees, and all of fiscal year 20, there was 1.5 million. The reason for the larger amount year to date in fiscal 21 is due to the fact that we actually, as we were working with licensees coming out of fiscal 20 and into fiscal 21, we were actually holding checks for them because we knew that in our conversations with them, they may not have been solvent. And we were trying to help them get back on their feet. So we were holding checks. And when they became solvent, they got back with us and let us know that. And then you'll see that many of those monies, that revenue stream, flowed over into this fiscal year. So that's why you see the large increase there in fiscal year 21. It's not really an anomaly. It's actually a reporting issue. Thank you for allowing me to testify on both, and I'll certainly take questions on 378 as well. And I do have an amendment to read. I apologize that Janet and the chair said it'd be okay to read. And very quickly, I'll read that. We'd recommend this to the committee. It's something we didn't think of until after we provided testimony, but it's as follows. Notwithstanding any provision of law to the contrary, and after the effective date of this act, the Department of Administrative and Financial Services and the Bureau, in the revised statutes, Title 28A, shall extend the license expiration date of on-premise licensees at the time of the license renewal by 90 days as a result of the governor's executive order to close all dine-in activities of on-premise establishments for the period of March 18 to June 16. End of amendment. Those dates, that was the time from the first executive order to when indoor dining was not allowed within the executive order. And this is what we've been doing, working with the establishments, trying to get them back on their feet and allowing them to pay when they're able to. We just felt this was something that would make sense, and we recommend this as unallocated language if possible, and we'll certainly adhere to the will of the committee. Now I will take any questions. Thank you.
Sorry, thank you, Director Minio. Representative Tuttle.
Director Minio, I had asked a question earlier about what is the actual financial impact of this bill if it passes?
We have not run the numbers for example, if you looked at the 90 days,
right.
We haven't done that. I know that's what you're asking. We will certainly do that and have that ready for Wednesday for the work session. We thought we'd start with giving you the wider perspective on what a full year looked like.
Well, thank you, Director. That's all I wanted to ask.
Thank you, Representative Tuttle. Any other questions for Director Minio? Seeing none. Thank you, Director, for your time and your testimony. We appreciate that.
Yes, sir.
There is nobody left on the pre-registration lists. If anybody in the attendee room wishes to testify on 306 or 378, if you want to raise your virtual hand, we'll promote you in. All right. Seeing none, we are closing the public hearing on LDs 306 and LD 378. We will now move in and open up public hearing for LD 307, which is an act to expand the market for Maine liquor manufacturers. Senator Lucchini, it's Senator Lucchini Day here at VLA. So It's number 3 for you, so please take it whenever you're ready, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's a busy day. Great day for my internet not to work. So good morning again, everybody. Representative Chiazzo, distinguished members of the Joint Standing Committee on Veterans and Legal Affairs. I'm Louis Lucchini. I represent most of Hancock County in the Maine Senate, and I'm here to present LD 307, an act to expand the market for Maine manufacturers. So this was a bill that was brought to me, a bill idea that was brought to me by a craft distillery here in the state of Maine. So what we've seen across the country, an increasing number of states have implemented systems of direct-to-consumer shipping of alcohol products. So this means that in those states, consumers are able to place an order for an alcoholic beverage and receive it through a common carrier like UPS or FedEx. For years, direct shipping of wine has been available across the country, including Maine. I think over 40 states, but now more states are expanding into beer and spirits. So I've included a link here, the number of direct to consumer states according to NCSL. It's constantly changing, but NCSL on this link lists in my testimony. 6 states plus Washington, D.C. permit the direct to consumer sale of spirits. 8 states allow the direct shipment of beer. So what this bill tries to do is clarify in Maine law that Maine-based manufacturers are allowed to sell and ship their products to out-of-state consumers in accordance with appropriate federal and state laws. So this is just a small step in helping our Maine manufacturers, which could be distilleries, wineries, breweries, hard ciders, expand their customer base and grow their businesses. Further, I believe we can implement this quickly and that will help offset the negative financial effects of the pandemic, and particularly the mandated closure of tasting rooms by executive order. They've been closed for a very long time, and while restaurants have been able to open, the executive order has not permitted tasting rooms to open. So that's hurt a lot of the on-premise sales that these companies could have been doing. And just to be clear, this bill does not make Maine a fully direct-to-consumer state, meaning that this doesn't mean that Maine residents will be able to buy alcohol online and have it shipped directly to their homes, with the exception of wine, which is already legal. There's going to be a much bigger bill on that discussion coming later this session. I believe it's Senator Trey Stewart has it in, and I think that's a much more comprehensive bill that we can take a look at. This really just says that Maine manufacturers can sell to states that allow their residents to do this. I think it's a very simple change, frankly. According, and on my written testimony, I linked a tax compliance software company, and they basically list out-of-state direct shipping would require 3 simple steps. So first, you have to use a common carrier like UPS or FedEx. The post office doesn't allow it. Secondly, you need the appropriate state's direct shipping license. And third, you pay tax in the destination state. So I think it's a really simple change that we can do. I've read the Bureau's testimony, and I think they, with all due respect, overcomplicate it immensely, because this isn't a huge change as big as what we see in the wine industry. This really just says if New Hampshire allows their residents to buy online and have it shipped to their house, then Maine businesses should be able to sell it to them. So obviously the Maine brand is incredibly strong when it comes to alcoholic beverages. As we all know, that we've been growing beer tourism here in the state. We have popular beer releases. We have festivals for all of our various alcoholic beverage types. Graduating, Maine college students who have visited our facilities can go back to their home states and will be able to order their favorite Maine beverages. So I think all of these are potential opportunities for our Maine-based manufacturers to develop continuing relationships with consumers abroad. And in my view, Maine should not regulate this industry far more stringently than federal law. Federal law allows this to happen, so I don't know why we would restrict our businesses from being able to export their product. Rather, we should be encouraging them to grow their businesses, expand outside of the state of Maine, just like we would do with any other Maine-based industry. So thanks for considering this bill, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Senator Lucchini. Representative Tuttle.
Yeah, thank you, Senator. If I remember correctly, the wine issue was presented by former Speaker Gideon during her freshman year, and I know I had some concerns about underage consumers. And I also have concerns, the same concerns if we do this, how will we verify folks that are purchasing this aren't minors?
Sure. So first, the direct-to-consumer shipping of wine was done prior to Speaker Gideon. She did a bill for wine auctions, but there was a large stakeholder group who did introduce the direct-to-consumer shipping of wine. That was before my time, and the Bureau references that law in their testimony. However, we're not allowing either Maine or out-of-state residents to bring those sales into Maine. We can only regulate what happens inside the state of Maine. So we can't tell if for example, let's say Nebraska allows the direct shipment of beer. A brewery here in the state of Maine would just have to follow Nebraska's laws on packaging, on verifying age. We can't write a law on how Nebraska would behave with our alcoholic beverages. The bigger discussion will be whether or not we want to introduce this into Maine, which I think is, would be a big market opportunity, but that's coming later this session from Senator Stewart. I saw this as just a short potential financial assistance we could do now.
But I still have some concerns about the minor aspects, Senator. I guess I'm old-fashioned, but I just want to make sure we're not causing an extra problem before we do it.
Sure, and just to that point, I'll say the states allow this to happen, and we would just be allowing our people to send it to states where the state has chosen to make that decision and policy decision on allowing the sale by direct carrier.
All right, thank you, Representative Tuttle. Senator Farren.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Senator Lucchini. You've already said this like 3 times, but I just want to make sure I get it through my head. This bill strictly focuses on Maine manufacturers of beer and spirits to be able to ship their products out of the state of Maine to states that allow that to receiving those goods.
Yeah, exactly. It's really complicated the way it's written because I'm not sure, to be honest, which law prohibits this from actually happening now. So we had to write it just to clarify that this is a legal procedure. And again, it would just allow our main businesses to follow state and federal laws elsewhere. Because to use I guess if we use New Hampshire as an example, if they made the decision that they want their residents to be able to order this, they can order alcoholic products from anywhere in the country and have it shipped to their residents. You just have to follow their laws. So I don't know why we would want to treat our own main businesses differently than every other manufacturer in every other state. I think it would create a disincentive for people to start businesses here when they could go to New Hampshire and be able to ship their product anywhere without being overly regulated by the state. If that makes sense. It is confusing. Yeah.
No. And so to that point, I think you said this from a federal law standpoint, and I'm sure Janet will dig deep into this on the analysis, but any concerns at all about the whole interstate commerce thing, where if you allow it to go out, but you don't come back in, or any of those things where this has taken place in other states? Have you seen anything like that?
There are some lawsuits that have been out on that, but I think if we were to say a Maine manufacturer can sell, that only a Maine manufacturer can sell to Maine residents, and we precluded out-of-state manufacturers from doing the same, then we would potentially face a Commerce Clause issue because we'd be giving preferential treatment to our businesses over other states. But I don't see it happening in this instance because we would be having our businesses treated the same as any other out-of-state manufacturer would be treated to those states who allow the importation of the direct shipment of alcohol to their residents.
All
But
right.
I'm not an attorney.
I know. Even though you stay at a Holiday Inn, you drink many spirits.
Yeah, that's right.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you, Senator Farren. Any other questions for Senator Lucchini? I have a quick one, Senator. Does this apply to international at all? I mean, in terms of export, let's say to Quebec or New Brunswick. I know there's been a big push lately to do a lot of regional food events and things like that, and a lot of cross-border stuff. Would that be a separate issue, or would this also pertain to international shipments?
I can look at how the bill is drafted. I think that this is mostly just to go in compliance with state and federal laws. But if federal law, I guess, allows that to happen, then I suppose it could. But that maybe we can ask Janet for that. But that is a good question. And just to be clear, like, our manufacturers can sell across state lines to wholesalers and distributors. Like, they can totally do that now. It's just, for whatever reason, they're being told that they can't sell direct to consumer to a state that allows it. And that's where I'm trying to fix, because we're allowed to sell it out of state to wholesalers, but they're being told they can't sell it out of state to consumers in states that allow it. So I think we'll see more and more states come on to that direct to consumer thing. And so this will increasingly be a bigger market that our businesses could tap.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Farren, did you have a follow-up, or you still have your hand stuck up? You're okay. You're good. Thank you. Any other questions for Senator Lucchini? All right. Seeing none, we will move on to public comment. First in favor, we have David Woods from Wiggly Bridge Distillery. Let me grab him in the.
Got it for you.
There he is. Thank you, sir. All right, Mr. Woods, whenever you're ready, please limit to 3 minutes if you could, and I'll start when you do. And Mr. Woods, you are on mute. There you go.
Okay, there we go. This Zoom stuff wigs me out. And I'm actually away, so it's actually good that we can do this. My name is David Woods from Wiggly Bridge Distillery. We're located in York, Maine. We have 2 processing distilleries in York, one in Center York Beach and one on Route 1 in York. I'm also a member of the Legislative Affairs Committee for American Craft Spirits Association. So we've done a lot of work in Washington and things like that. And DTC is one of those things that is going to be extremely important over the upcoming years to craft spirit producers. I've done a lot of research in the past week, and instead of being totally for, I now find myself neither for nor against. I believe the biggest change in my position is getting into commerce clauses and the actual implementation of the bill. I do understand it's a starting point, but I'm extremely nervous that it could become a filler of, in the future, when DTC was looked at, that a different legislature or different legislative affairs committee than is presently seated may look at it that, oh, we've already got that covered, and not be as interested in looking at legislation that would actually bring us to the level that a lot of states are at with direct to consumer. I understand the part of not being able to do intrastate, because that would definitely, at this point, open up the state for state shipping in. But I honestly believe in the future, a more encompassing form of legislation could be created to really do what we're intending to do. We've been hit really, really hard this past year. I mean, I've got 2 distillery tasting rooms that have been closed since March, and we are down 80% or over $800,000 in revenue. And it hurts. It hurts. So whatever can be done to allow us to send a bottle to somebody that enjoyed their time with us during the summertime would definitely help us. We presently do online sales through third-party distributors out in California and Illinois. I believe their business models will be changed as direct consumer becomes clarified of the way to properly do it within every state in the United States. And I want to thank the legislative committee for allowing me to speak, and I appreciate the work you're doing on this.
Thank you, Mr. Woods. Representative McCrate.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Woods, thank you. I had a question for you. It sounds like your concern is you don't want anything to block something bigger later, if I'm correct about that. But my question is, does the emergency nature of this make a difference in your mind? Because this could happen now as opposed to something coming later. And
it can't be soon enough.
Can't be soon enough.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I honestly can't see the way it is written right now to where I would be able to do more than what I currently do the way we do it. I mean, I eventually envision where I'll be able to have 3 to 5 employees in a little shipping department sending out spirits. I mean, nationally, this Christmas season, we sold over 300 bottles of spirits in a 2.5-week period of time. Our tasting room on Route 1 sold 35 bottles during that same period of time because we can't do tastings and we're pretty much forced to be closed. We do still some retail sales, but I had to lay 19 people off at Thanksgiving. So it's just my production assistant that when somebody opens the door, an announcer goes off and you walk upstairs to see what the people want, and hopefully they want to put a bottle under their arm. But sales have definitely crashed.
Exactly. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Representative McCrate. Anybody else from the committee have any questions for Mr. Woods? All right, seeing none. I'm not sure where you are, Mr. Woods, but definitely jealous with the palm tree in the background for sure.
It's a little island called Montserrat, and the veranda is the only place that I can get the internet because it's island-wide internet. So you just have to pick your spots.
Well, definitely looks warmer and sunnier there than it is up here in Maine right now. But thank you for your testimony.
But do not take your time. We came down in January. They've been COVID-free since June. And the little 8-passenger plane that we flew over on, there was a guy that was infected and infected 7 people on the island. So we have been on an island lockdown since the day we got here, 3 weeks ago. So it's been restful.
Well, thank you for taking the time to join us today. We definitely appreciate it for sure.
I appreciate you hearing me. You have a good day.
Thank you, Mr. Woods. All right. Next up, that's it for in favor. There's nobody against. So why don't we go with Director Minio? Start off as neither for nor against. And let me grab Director Minio and move him up. There you are. And whenever you're ready, sir.
Good morning. Good morning. Thank you again, Senator Lucchini, Representative Cayazzo, members of the Joint Standing Committee on Veterans and Legal Affairs. My name is Greg Minio. and I'm the Director of the Bureau of Alcoholic Beverages and Lottery Operations. And I'm providing the following written testimony, neither for nor against LD 307. This bill provides for the direct-to-consumer shipping of beer, wine, spirits, cider, any beverage alcohol, as long as the state to which product is shipped allows for this activity. Based on our research, only 4 states currently allow direct-to-consumer shipping, both by in-state and out-of-state manufacturers for beer, wine, and spirits, all 3 categories. 5 states allow direct-to-consumer shipping of beer and wine, and all require a license or permit for this activity. So here are some of our areas of concern, and I'll stop for a moment, and my apologies to the committee. You'll probably see in your inbox, you would have received 2 emails from Janet on testimony. Please refer to the one that you would have received last, which was around 4 o'clock on Friday. So I'll continue. Areas of concern by the Bureau. Number 1, oversight, tracking and reporting. While the bill qualifies, I quote, as long as the sale and shipment are both authorized by and conducted in accordance with the requirements of the law of the state where the shipment is delivered, end of quote, there isn't a mechanism in the bill for tracking shipments by manufacturers as there is for direct shipment of wine under section 1403. This is a needed feature to ensure compliance and to provide oversight. B is staffing. I've mentioned this before. Direct-to-consumer shipping is a significant change in Maine's liquor laws. As crafted, the bill would authorize 24 distilleries, 12 large breweries, and 134 small breweries. As noted above, Maine wineries already have this ability in Maine to direct ship their products outside of Maine. The Bureau is already stretched to its maximum ability to manage what Maine's liquor laws already require, including the oversight of 615 direct shippers of wine. That's coming into the state, of course. At the time of renewal of these 615 licenses, staff must reconcile the direct ship sales to determine the amount of excise taxes to be paid and review data on sales to determine compliance with statutory requirements. Without more staffing, especially with more legislation forthcoming in this session, the situation will become unmanageable. This is a critical juncture for the Bureau. Collection of taxes. For spirit sales, our question has to do with where the sale takes place, in Maine or where the shipment is headed. If the former, in Maine, in other words, then there must be reporting to the Bureau by the distillery consistent with 1355A. I'll stop there, go off script. I think we understand after having written this that in the case of sales tax, it has to do with the incoming state. I'll mention that. I'll let Janet correct me on that if I'm wrong. B, for beer and wine sales, the same issue about place of sale and whether excise tax needs to be collected by the Bureau for those shipments to consumers outside of Maine. I'll go off script again and tell you for certain, excise taxes are collected from Maine manufacturers the 15th of every month on every product that they produce and pull from their inventory for retail sale. So this would be no different. We would have to collect excise tax by statute on those products. Overlap of 2 sections of law potentially. This bill includes the ability for manufacturers of wine to direct ship. Maine wineries already have that ability under 1403, so this bill will create a conflict with existing law. Consistency. This bill should be modeled after 1403 for reporting requirements and tax payments. As noted above, this bill doesn't provide any mechanism by which the Bureau is notified of shipments. Under Section 1403, even Maine wineries are required to provide a report of their shipping activities because they must be licensed as a direct shipper of wine. Their manufacturing license doesn't provide authority to direct ship. They must be separately licensed to do so. I will just add this before I thank the committee that respectfully, we did not try to complicate this by everything I had just read. We tried to add a little texture and context to the committee on what we have to do, what our rigor is every day on every piece of paper and every file that comes across our desks concerning licensing. And this would add to that. And it's something that I feel responsible in reporting to the committee, of course. I will take any questions, and certainly we look forward to the work session. Thank you.
Thank you, Director. Any questions for Director Minio from the committee? All right, seeing none, we thank the director for his testimony. Next, we will have Andrew Hackman from Union Discuss as neither for nor against, followed by Christine Cummings from Maine Grocers and Food Producers, who is also neither for nor against. That would wrap up everybody on our list. If there are others in the virtual room that would like to provide testimony, please raise your virtual hand, and I will promote Mr. Hackman up right now. There you are. Thank you, Mr. Hackman, for waiting, and the floor is yours when you're ready.
Thank you, Chairman Chiazzo, Senator Lucchini, and members of the Veterans and Legal Affairs Committee. My name is Andrew Hackman. I'm a resident of Union, Maine, and I represent the Distilled Spirits Council of the United States. They are the major association that represents both small and little manufacturers, both outside of the state of Maine and here in Maine. We certainly support LD 307 in terms of its ability to allow Maine spirits producers to ship spirits to where it's already legal to ship spirits into other states. As mentioned, there are 6 states plus the District of Columbia that allow direct-to-consumer sales outside of the state of Maine. New Hampshire is one of them. As mentioned, we are actively working with Senator Stewart on a larger piece of legislation to consider direct-to-consumer spirits sales here in the state of Maine, which is already allowed for wine. I want to underscore, we're not sure where the current restriction is that would prevent a Maine distiller from shipping to a state like New Hampshire or Kentucky where it is legal. We believe that's an interstate commerce clause issue where we cannot restrict a sale in another state where it is absolutely legal. So in New Hampshire, it is legal now to purchase a direct-to-consumer bottle of spirits either from a distillery in New Hampshire or from Kentucky or from Ohio, et cetera. And so we're a little bit quizzical on where the current restriction, where this piece of legislation is needed. But again, we certainly support the ability for Maine spirit suppliers to be able to ship to those states where it is 100% legal now. We also think from a standpoint of equity, as we have this discussion and as legislation comes forward later in session, that the same equity should be provided to everybody in terms of having direct-to-consumer sales. So it's something that DISCUS is working on across the country, and we believe it can be done safely, especially with common carrier codes, age validation, and it is working in those 7 other jurisdictions where it's being provided now. So again, certainly supportive of the concept here, believe that it's legal already, and would appreciate the legislation making that clear in statute, and look forward to a larger conversation around direct consumer sales later in session. So I can answer any questions you might have for me or for the Distilled Spirits Council.
Thank you, Mr. Hackman, and my apologies for the phone in the middle of your testimony. I hope that wasn't too distracting. Any questions from the committee members for Mr. Hackman? All right, seeing none, we thank you for your testimony, sir, and appreciate your patience in the waiting room. Up next, we'll have Christina Cummings. So let me promote Christina up. And whenever you're ready, Ms. Cummings.
Perfect. Good morning. Senator Lucchini, Representative Chiazzo, and members of the Committee on Veterans and Legal Affairs. My name is Christine Cummings. I'm the Executive Director of the Maine Grocers and Food Producers Association. The Maine Grocers and Food Producers Association is a trade group representing Maine's food community, such as independently owned and operated grocery stores and supermarkets, food and beverage producers, processors, manufacturers, and our wholesale and distributor partners. We are testifying neither for nor against LD 307, and instead we ask the committee to consider a resolve to further the conversation about expanding the market for our in-state manufacturers, Mainers as customers, and our state's retailers as partners. The reality is that liquor is being sold to Maine consumers online, and our distillers are working with partners outside the state to ensure the demand for their product can be met. There are 2 bills this session seeking to address changes in the market. Now is the time to convene a stakeholders meeting to discuss what is the demand and the opportunity, what's currently happening, how can we all work together to comply and capitalize on potential lost dollars, and engage our retail partners to determine what role they can potentially serve in selling to the customer. We ask for pause to ensure a vetted approach to these potential market changes. I'm happy to help facilitate any conversations with my members or to gather additional feedback as the conversation continues. And I thank you for the opportunity to provide testimony this morning.
Thank you, Ms. Cummings. That was very brief and appreciated. Any questions from the committee? All right, seeing none, thank you again. We appreciate your testimony today. So that concludes the list of pre-registrants. Is there anybody in the attendee room who has not spoken yet who wishes to speak on LD 307? All right, seeing none, then we will close the public hearing. And I will turn it, Senator Lucchini, do you have a question or?
Just, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just for the work session, I would ask our analyst to reach out to Bablo and identify the law that prohibits this currently.
All right. Any other questions, I'm sorry, before we close out the public hearing? All right, seeing none, then the public hearing is closed on LD 307, and I will turn it back over to Senator Lucchini.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So it looks like we have finished all of the morning bills. I'm just checking my calendar. I think we're scheduled for 1 o'clock for work sessions. I don't know if Janet is there. I think 1 o'clock, so we'll have to take a break until 1 o'clock, and we have a work session on LD 148, I believe. Okay, thanks, Karen. So if there's nothing else that we need to cover this morning, we will wait until the scheduled time and do the work session on LD 148 at 1 o'clock. Senator Farron?
Yeah, just to confirm, if we leave this, is it the same link to get back on at 1 o'clock?
Yep, it'll be the same link. Yep, perfect. Yeah, I know it's hard to keep track of all the various links we have to have. And I think we also have a language review on something too. So we'll do all of those at 1 o'clock. And I think Janet sent out a language review notice. So I think it's one of the voting ones. So, all right, great. With that, we will take a recess until 1 o'clock. Thanks, everyone.
Mr. Chair, if you could change my name, I'd appreciate it.
What would you like your name to be, Representative Tuttle?
I'd like to be Corey Patrick today, or Patrick Corey.
I don't know why I come up as Corey Patrick, where in AFA I come up as Patrick Corey.
I don't know, Pat. You have to, it must be a conspiracy.
It is. Somebody's rigged Zoom.
I know, yeah. They're all jealous because you're on appropriations, Pat.
Oh, jealous. You wouldn't have been jealous listening to the education budget today.
Heaven help you.
Yeah, and 2 days of Health and Human Services. That was.
Yeah, that can be. Better you than us, Pat.
There we go. I was all set to come back into this meeting though. Like I came on, I don't know if anyone noticed it for like the last 5 seconds of the meeting.
Yeah, well, I wish I could say that too, Pat, but I went through the whole thing.
The whole thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what part of Wyndham, Pat, do you represent?
I represent South Wyndham. So essentially everything between Route 302 and Gorham.
Yep.
Up to 115. And then I've got a couple of neighborhoods on the other side of 302, but not a whole lot.
So who was the rep before you?
Jane Pringle for 2 years, and then before that it was Gary Plummer for 8 years.
Yeah, Gary, very nice guy.
And then I think it was actually like Dave Tobin before that. Yeah, he's a good guy too.
Yeah. Is Gary still living?
Yeah.
He's
still around.
Yeah,
Dave Tobin is too. He's like in his 80s, late 80s probably.
Well, David served on this committee when I was chair.
Oh, really? Huh.
Yep. Back in the 80s.
Yeah.
Time flies, Pat.
It does.
Yeah.
I can't believe I'm in my 4th term, That's.
Oh, yeah. I remember when Bill Diamond was a rep from Wyndham.
Oh, geez.
Yeah. He's term this time, I guess.
Yep.
Yeah.
We're both terming at the same time.
Well, yeah. How did you like criminal justice?
I liked it. I mean, you know how it can be like being on the same committees over and over again. You see those perennial bills.
Yeah.
And it can get a little boring. Criminal justice was interesting for me because of I have a prison in my district.
Yeah.
So, a lot of the Department of Correction stuff got interesting for me. And then criminal law in general is pretty fascinating, when you really think sort of about the consequences, and all of that other stuff. So I miss it a little bit, but I needed something new.
Were you ever a policeman or?
No.
No,
I'm an artist.
Oh yeah, well, there's hope then.
Yeah.
No,
I think that the thing is I think that the issues on that committee are so disparate that it doesn't just affect police. There's you're also dealing with the law itself. You're dealing with firefighters. You're dealing with the Department of Corrections. That it's not all police.
Yeah, well,
all the time.
They used to deal with marijuana. Now we've got it, right?
No, I mean, I think that marijuana has kind of been I think if you think about medical marijuana, that was initially with HHS. And then I sat on that committee a few years ago that rewrote that whole marijuana law after the voters approved it. And that was the recreational side. So rec essentially went from that marijuana committee to VLA. But marijuana or medical has gone from HHS to VLA. And the good thing is at least all of that stuff is regulated now under OMP, the Office of Marijuana Policy. They're very similar, people would like to see them separate, but they're very similar markets.
Well, I'm on the city council in Sanford and we're dealing with it on the local level. So it's amazing how the whole thing is really skyrocketed.
Who is your town manager down there again?
Stephen Buck.
Yeah. I'll tell
He's a
you, when
good
we were
guy.
going through the process early on, I mean, he's a real standout on that issue,
Yep.
Yeah, I thought he was your town manager, but he's definitely done a good job being on top of it and making sure that your local ordinances and statutes have kind of kept up with it. So you guys are really lucky.
Well, we got him from Caribou.
Yeah.
And my mother's from Caribou. So we had sort of an instant connection there, but he's probably the best manager in my time. He's, very lucky to have him.
Right. If everybody's ready, we can get back. Looks like we've got a big group of members. So,
Mr. Chair, I'll keep quiet.
We are streaming, so
All right.
let's move on to the afternoon agenda, which is a work session on LD 148, an act to establish online absentee voting. And so we'll turn it over to Janet to walk us through her analysis. And we also received an amendment from the speaker, I think by email yesterday or this morning.
Hello, everyone. So LD 148, as the chair said, is an act to establish ongoing absentee voting. It was presented by the speaker. It allows a voter to obtain ongoing absentee voter status and automatically, by virtue of that status, receive absentee ballots by mail for each subsequent statewide, municipal, or other, which would be a county election, until that status is terminated through one of the methods specified in the bill. I want to blow this up a little bit more because I don't know how small people's devices are. Okay, maybe that'll help. The bill requires the Secretary of State to design procedures for requesting this ongoing absentee voter status. For example, I would imagine the procedures would be regarding how requests can be made, whether those are in writing, via the phone or the internet, and as well as the information that must be included in each request. At a minimum, however, the bill does require the procedures to include the following. As is currently allowed with respect to one-time absentee voter applications, a voter who's unable to read, sign, or complete the application due to physical disability, illiteracy, or religious faith would be able to obtain assistance in doing so from a person other than the voter's employer, or an agent of the voter's employer or union. In addition, the procedures have to require an applicant to provide a telephone number and email address. And the procedures have to notify an applicant that the applicant's ongoing absentee voter status will be terminated if the applicant moves out of the municipality. Under the bill, uniformed service voters and overseas voters who are covered by the Federal Uniformed and Overseas Citizens Absentee Voting Act, often called UCAVA in this committee, may not apply for ongoing absentee voter status under the bill. Under current Maine law, however, our UCAVA voters' valid absentee ballot request remains valid for each federal and state election that occurs within 18 months after the request is received. So under current law, most voters, if you request an absentee ballot, you get it for just the election that's coming up. But UCAVA voters, their requests last for 18 months. Under the bill, if you request ongoing absentee voter status and it's granted, the municipal clerk or the Secretary of State may terminate your ongoing absentee voter status if and only if one of the following occurs. If the voter requests termination of the status in writing, if the voter dies or becomes disqualified, if an absentee ballot that's subsequently sent to the voter is returned as undeliverable, or if the voter's registration is designated as either inactive or is canceled in the central voter registration system. And I'll explain how that happens in just a second. But as far as summarizing the bill also in section 3 requires that all voters submitting requests for an absentee ballot, not just ongoing requests, but also just one-time requests, must be asked to provide their telephone numbers and email addresses as part of that application. Section 4 of the bill then requires that if the clerk notices any of the following defects on the return envelope, that is, the voter's signature is missing, the voter's signature on that envelope does not match the voter's signature on the absentee ballot application if there is a signature on that application, or if the affidavit on the return envelope is improperly completed, then under section 4 of the bill, the clerk must make a good faith effort to notify the voter within 24 hours by mail, telephone, or email of the procedure by which the voter may cure the identified defect. The bill doesn't specify what that procedure is, however. Under the bill, if it's enacted, it would not take effect until January 1st, 2023. So it has a delayed effective date. Was that me or somebody else? Okay. As far as inactive and canceled voter registrations, if you remember, I mentioned in the bill summary that that is one of the ways that your status as an ongoing absentee voter would be terminated under the bill. So under existing law, which is quoted there, a voter's registration will be designated inactive in the central voter registration system if the registrar or secretary of state has reason to believe that the voter's moved and sends by forwardable mail a change of address confirmation notice to the voter's last known place of residence with a postage page and pre-addressed return notice, but the voter fails to respond. So if you get that in the mail, you don't respond, then you're deemed inactive, and that's current law. And then under the bill, if you were an ongoing absentee voter and you're deemed inactive, then you're no longer ongoing. You'd have to request an absentee ballot afresh in order to get one. In addition, under current law, a voter's registration is canceled in the central voter registration if either the voter registers to vote in another jurisdiction, or if the voter receives the notice that I mentioned before, they're designated inactive and then they fail to vote in 2 general elections after that time, then their inactive status will be turned into a canceled status. So if either of those things happen, then also if you're an ongoing absentee voter under the bill, your status as an ongoing absentee voter would be terminated. To understand this, it may be helpful, because we haven't done these kind of bills before this session, to understand how current law works with absentee ballot requests. So under current law, a voter can request an absentee ballot without specifying a reason, unless the request is made after the 3rd business day before the election, in which case the voter has to sign a statement that they'll meet one of the following reasons. They'll be unexpectedly absent from the municipality during the entire time the polls are open. The voter has a physical disability. The voter is unable to travel to the polls and is a resident of a coastal island, or if the voter is ill or incapacitated in a way that prevents the voter from leaving home or a treatment facility. So those reasons are only required, again, if you make your request within the 3rd business day before the election. Otherwise, you don't need a reason to request an absentee ballot. So under current law, there are also several different ways to request your absentee ballot. You can request it in writing, and that written request has to state the voter's name, residence address, and if applicable, the different address where the absentee ballot should be sent. Any of those written requests have to be either signed by the voter or signed by the voter's immediate family member. And there's a footnote there because the statute identifies specifically who counts as an immediate family member, and you can read that list. An alternative written request, if it's not signed by the voter or signed by the voter's immediate family member, you can also make a written request signed by the voter and delivered by a 3rd person to the clerk. It has to include all of the same information that was stated above, has to be signed by the voter, and then the clerk can issue the absentee ballot to that 3rd person to give to the voter. Or they can also request that the 3rd person be allowed to bring the ballot back when it's done being voted. But in those cases, anytime you involve a 3rd person, it has to be signed by the voter. You can't have an immediately family member sign it and the 3rd person themselves can't sign it. The voter themselves has to under current law. You can also request an absentee ballot by telephone. If you do so, you have to state the voter's name, residence request, and a birth date. That's according to the statute, the birth date's used to confirm your identity, and where applicable, a different address where you want the ballot to be sent. The ballot may not be requested or issued to a third person or immediate family member if it's requested by phone. The law also provides for online requests. So a voter may request his or her own absentee ballot through means designed by the Secretary of State that must require the clerk to verify the voter's identity using their residence address and birth date. Again, online requests can't be made by third persons or immediate family members, and the ballot can't be delivered to a third person or immediate family member if the request is made online. Even without specifically requesting a ballot through the mail, there are also provisions in law for absentee voting in nursing homes and assisted living facilities where the clerk goes out to those facilities before the election. And then someone also can go into the municipal clerk's office and vote in person by absentee ballot prior to the election day. In the past, as was alluded to in the public hearing testimony, a resolve passed in 2009 required the Secretary of State to conduct a pilot program for ongoing absentee voter status for the 3 statewide elections in November of 2009, June 2010, and November in 2010. And there was a report that was issued. It's linked here because it's reproduced in the Secretary of State's testimony on this bill. I also gathered some information from NCSL on other states that have permanent absentee voting, either for all voters or specifically for voters with permanent disabilities and or specifically for voters over the age of 65. So different states approach that in different ways. There are also a few states that are also listed in the attachment where absentee ballot applications, but not the ballot themselves, are automatically sent to certain types of voters, for example, those over 65 or those with disabilities. So there's a chart with all of those at the very end of this that comes from NCSL with a little bit of updating because I double checked some of the statutes. At the hearing, the Secretary of State proposed in her testimony substituting the language in Section 4 of the bill that requires clerks to notify absentee voters when there's a problem with the signatures or affidavit on the absentee return envelope. The main differences between the Secretary's proposal and the bill, as far as I could tell, are as follows. In the bill, the clerk must make a good faith effort to notify the absentee voter of any discrepancy in the signature, missing signature, or improperly completed affidavit within 24 hours by mail, telephone, or email. In the Secretary's proposed amendment, the clerk must hold the envelope aside for a minimum of 1 business day while attempting to notify the voter. In addition, the Secretary's proposed amendment also directs the clerk to note on the return envelope the potential defect that's been found. And as well, they also make a note of an explanation whether that's been cured by the voter, and if so, whether they now accept or reject that ballot. And if they do reject it, an explanation why. I should note that after writing this bill analysis, I spoke to Deputy Secretary of State Flynn, and she indicated that the portion of the proposed amendment that was reproduced in the Secretary of State's testimony is a little bit difficult to follow. I noted that there was a cross-reference you couldn't quite follow, and that's because they reproduced a portion of a department bill that's coming along later. So if you wanted to go with this proposed amendment, I would ask that you allow me to work with the Deputy Secretary of State to make sure we get all the language cleaned up, because they just reproduced a part of their bill, and it may be that we need to look at the other parts of their bill to make sure all of the language works and all the cross-references work out. But that's only if you want to go forward with it. The League of Women Voters of Maine also proposed amending this bill. They recommended that Maine join the Electronic Registration Information Center, sometimes called ERIC, to help maintain accurate voting rolls and to help prevent sending absentee ballots to incorrect addresses if you go forward with this proposal. Represent Us, a gentleman from there, also testified in favor of ERIC membership. There's a lot of information set forth here, including costs and precisely what steps are taken to ensure the accuracy of voter registration records if a state were to join ERIC. I'm not going to go through all of that now, But if you want to look through it or you want to ask me any questions, I'm happy to talk about it. But it is a detailed process that uses cross-state data and the Social Security Administration's master death index list to ensure that voter rolls are accurate. The Maine Town and City Clerks Association also proposed amending the bill. They did note that they were opposing the bill, but if the committee moved forward, they request that Section 4 of the bill be amended to require rulemaking to detail the process clerks must use to notify an absentee voter of a potential defect or defects in the signature or the affidavit on the return envelope. So the bill is currently drafted, says that the clerks have to notify the voter of the procedure, but the bill doesn't specify what that procedure is. And so the clerks were requesting that all of that be spelled out, perhaps through rulemaking. In response to questions, but not in its written testimony, the Maine Municipal Association at the public hearing suggested that the bill imposes a state mandate. Under the Maine Constitution, the state may not require a local unit of government to expand or modify that unit's activities so as to necessitate additional expenditures from local revenues, unless either of the following occurs. Either the state provides 90% of the funding for those expenditures, or 2/3 of the elected memberships of each chamber vote in favor of the legislation. If this option is selected, usually a mandate preamble is added to the legislation. So that's the state mandate provision. It's a state mandate. If it does both of those things, if it meets both of those requirements, it increases the activities of the local unit of government. And by increasing those activities, it requires more money. If both of those things are met, then you either have to provide for 90% of the funding or add a mandate preamble and have 2/3 of each chamber vote in favor. Otherwise, you can still pass the legislation, but the local units of government would not be bound by any mandate contained within the legislation. There were some information requests. There was information for a request for further information to quantify the potential cost to towns to implement the bill. From the Maine Town and City Clerks Association, and a question was posed to the Maine Municipal Association about examples of fraud in other states that have implemented permanent absentee voting. I did have 2 technical issues to raise for you regarding the bill. One is about rulemaking, and it's not for the same reason that the Maine Town and City Clerks Association raised this issue. But I did want to point out to you that under the Maine Administrative Procedures Act, the whole or any part of any agency guideline that is or is intended to be judicially enforceable and that implements, interprets, or makes specific the law administered by the agency or that describes the procedures or practice of the agency should be the subject of rulemaking. The import of that is under the Maine Administrative Procedure Act, if you direct through legislation that an agency create guidelines or establish procedures, but they aren't in fact rules, then they are not judicially enforceable. So I wanted to make you aware of those provisions of state law and point out that you may want to consider whether the procedures designed by the Secretary of State under the bill for an application for ongoing absentee voter status and or the procedure by which the voter may cure a discrepancy on an absentee ballot return envelope, whether those should be done through rulemaking or they should just be procedures perhaps not judicially enforceable under the bill the way it's written, or indeed your other option could be to decide as a committee what you want those procedures to be and just write them right into the statute. That would work as well, unless you don't want to go forward with the bill, and then we're fine. Another potential issue, I don't know if this is an issue, this just occurred to me when I was looking at the bill again, and I hope that if there are people who actually do these things in day-to-day life that they can weigh in and see, but I was trying to think about the procedure in the bill that requires clerks to notify someone within 24 hours of receiving an absentee ballot that there might be a defect on the return envelope. And I wondered what happens if that absentee ballot is received within 24 hours of the close of polls on election day. Are people allowed to correct the return envelope after the polls close or not? And if not, should that be something the committee wants to write into the bill if they want to go forward with it and say that you have to make a good faith effort to notify a voter unless it's within, a couple of hours of the end of the close of the polls, because maybe there wouldn't be time to cure it if you think that that has to happen before the close of polls. And I don't know what you think on that. So that's just an idea for you to consider. And then the attachment, this is the information from the National Conference of State Legislatures on the different ongoing absentee ballot provisions and other laws. And then down here, these are the 4 states where they send out the absentee ballot application instead of the actual absentee ballot to certain categories of voters automatically. Senator Lucchini mentioned that the speaker had a proposed amendment that's also posted. This is the VLA committee materials page. If you go straight to this bill, and his proposed amendment is also posted, and I can go through that, but I'll wait for your direction to see what you want next.
Yep. Thank you, Janet. And just so I guess committee members kind of know the process we typically use is if somebody wants to bring in an amendment, they do it through a committee member rather than just have people come on. That's typically the procedures that we follow. So I'm happy to bring in the speaker's amendment. And if you'd like, Janet, if you can walk us through that, that would be great.
Sure. So here is now Senator Lucchini's proposed amendment to the bill. I forgot about that. I'm sorry, Senator.
So I think we talked about it, but I couldn't remember because it's much easier when we're in person because one of us actually has to hand it to everybody.
That's true. Well, pretend Senator Lucchini is handing you this piece of paper right now. So his amendment would amend the bill in section 1 to specify that only voters who are at least 65 years of age or who have a physical disability can apply for ongoing absentee voter status. This change is only just because I think it reads a little bit better. It's not actually substantive. So the substantive part of this portion of the amendment is to just limit ongoing absentee voter status to those individuals who are 65 years of age or older or who have a physical disability. Sections 2 and 3 of the bill, those are the sections that require all voters who want an absentee ballot to give a telephone, contact number, and email address if they have one. And the section 3 is the one that says that as soon as the clerks receive absentee ballots from the Secretary of State, they send them out to the people on this ongoing list. Those are retained in this amendment. But section 4 of the bill would be replaced with this part of the amendment, which takes existing law, which requires the clerk to look at the signature of the voter on the return envelope and also to look at the affidavit on the return envelope and see if they're filled out correctly. Instead of, as the bill does, saying contact somebody within 24 hours and tell them the procedure, instead this proposed amendment would, this paragraph B is just moving some language from above. So the important part is paragraph C. It says if the clerk notices the discrepancy, they have to make a good faith effort to notify the voter by mail, telephone, or email. And then it says that the Secretary of State is going to adopt routine technical rules to specify exactly what the clerk's duties are. So how soon do they have to notify, what's a good faith effort, that sort of thing. And then also the procedures will spell out what the voter has to do to cure any defect in that return envelope. Paragraph D says, yeah.
Can I ask you just a quick question on that? So the way that is in the rules right there, that would establish what a good faith effort is for doing this, or?
I shouldn't have, oh yeah, they could satisfy, they could say what a good faith effort is.
Okay, thanks. I think that's what the clerks asked for. So that was kind of to have that in rules. That way it's not a subjective kind of term.
Yeah, I think that would work. Because it says it's going to specify the clerk's duties, which would include the good faith effort, as well as the process the voter has to use to cure the defect.
Great, thanks.
And then just paragraph C says if it's not cured, then they have to mark that on the envelope, because this whole provision of law is about the clerk looking at the return envelope and either marking okay or that there's a problem. And then if you remember when we talked about the early processing bill, then when it gets to the early processing days, which are later, then they take everything out of the envelope and they look, was this an envelope that was okay or not? So these notations are made as soon as they get the ballot, and all of that stuff happens ahead of time. And then the summary just tells you what I just told you.
Great, thank you, Janet. And the speaker put this forward, I think as, I think it's a good first step towards doing this in a more limited, I guess, manner with those over 65 as well as those with physical disabilities, which in the chart that Janet provided us, it shows that a lot of states kind of use that procedure, particularly for voters with disabilities and those over 65. So I'm supportive of the speaker's amendment, but certainly if anybody has any questions, we can start over the, if you have any questions for Janet on the analysis or any discussion, we can enter into that. Representative Chiazzo.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So Janet, if we accept the speaker's amendment, how does that impact the Secretary of State's recommendations for amendment? Does that change it at all, or is it because of the limited scope, or are they still valid?
So the Secretary of State, instead of rulemaking, they proposed some specific language about what the clerk would do. It didn't give a time frame, but as I mentioned before, I think part of the issue is the Secretary of State's proposal is sort of one piece of a bill, and I don't know what all of the other pieces would do. But the speaker's proposal, now Senator Lucchini's proposal, would replace that with a specific rulemaking provision rather than putting everything in statute.
Okay.
I hope that answers your question.
Yep, thank you.
And Representative Chiazzo, we also have the Secretary of State here, so we can call her up to address that as well. Secretary Bellows, and I think part of that is just around the entire section 4 of the bill and whether or not that whole section should just be in rules. So Secretary Bellows, if you'd like to provide some input, that'd be great.
Sure. So thank you very much, Senator Lucchini, Representative Chiazzo, members of the committee. I'm Secretary of State Shanna Bellows. Deputy Secretary of State Julie Flynn conferred with your analyst, who did a terrific job in the summary of this bill, and also with the Clerks Association. And what we might recommend is that you take out the section 4 here in this amendment and in the bill altogether, because remember, this bill takes effect in January of 2023. The larger issue of curing absentee ballots that have mistakes on them applies in every election. And we are working collaboratively with the clerks. We're actually meeting with them tomorrow. And we are going to be bringing forward an agency bill that will deal with curing of absentee ballots. So it might be simpler for purposes of moving this bill forward to eliminate the language around section 4 and just have this bill focus on extending ongoing absentee ballot status for seniors and people with permanent disabilities.
Thank you, Secretary. So just so I understand better, so we would just strike it entirely as well as the rules, and then we'll deal with that in a different piece of legislation coming later. And this would be entirely focused on the ongoing process.
That would be our recommendation, in part because this bill takes effect in January of 2023. And the larger issues around curing an absentee ballot and making a good faith effort to reach a voter if there is an error on their absentee ballot, those are issues that would apply with regards to absentee ballots that are not ongoing. And so those issues are ones we would want to address sooner. And I think having some time to work with the clerks on mutually agreeable language, and to the analyst's point, clarifying what is placed in statute versus rule, I think might be more appropriate for a later bill.
Okay, thank you. Senator Farron, I think it's, I don't know if you have a question or.
Well, not a question for the Secretary, just overall is that, you know, I look at this and we've raised the things similar to what the Secretary of State just talked about, is taking section 4 out, is that we're looking at this legislation Even though it's January of 2023, when we know that we've got some issues to clean up with the voter rolls, we don't know what the fiscal impact is on the municipalities, especially some of the smaller ones. Taking those concerns that the clerks had and saying pass this and we'll get to either through rulemaking or statute, we'll clean those things up. It seems to me like we're putting the legislation before we address all of those issues. And for that matter, I think that we should clean those things up and address those things and then look at this legislation at some other point down the road. So I can't support where we are right now until we clean up those other things.
Representative Corey.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I kind of echo what Brad is saying or Senator Farrett is saying in terms of sort of having all of that stuff in place before deciding whether or not I would actually want to support this. I do want to support something that looks like this, but I've got a series of sort of concerns and potential amendments that I'd like to at least see in something like this. I can kind of start to run through those now if the committee would entertain hearing those.
Yeah, I mean, we can, any discussion you'd like is totally.
So with regard to the ballots themselves and whether or not somebody stays within automatic, absentee ballot voter status, one thing that I want to see, with regard to ballot security is I don't want to see ballots sort of floating around out there that don't get returned. So what I was thinking that a ballot would actually need to be returned, whether it's marked or unmarked, to the clerk for that person to remain as an eligible absentee, ongoing absentee ballot voter would be a big concern for me, just because I think if you don't turn the ballot, back in, that, I don't think that being marked as an inactive, voter works, because that really seems like a separate issue as to whether or not you're actually using, the absentee ballot status itself. Another issue I have, if we can't, do something like that, would be that I'd be okay with, clerks automatically sending request forms to people with each election process, but probably not the ballot themselves. Again, I feel like they don't hand me two ballots when I walk into to vote in person and then trust that I'm going to hand the other ballot back. I at least want to have good control of the ballots, whether those ballots are marked and sent back, or if they are returned unmarked and sent back for somebody to continually be eligible for this automatic voter status. Another issue I have is with regard to signing up for this absentee voter status. We go through a series of ways that people can do it for one-time absentee ballots. So, we'd gone through, telephone requests, third-party requests, like from a family member, or, somebody themselves actually requesting a ballot. What I'd like to see, at least if somebody's signing up for automatic absentee voter status, that what we'd look at is something where there actually has to be a signature, because we're talking about signature verification, purposes with the clerk. And if, somebody just calls and phones in that they want to be an absentee, a ongoing absentee voter, how do we actually have a signature on file from that person other than their voter reg card? So I'd actually like to see a physical sign up for that. And I know that, with some people that, have, disabilities or the inability to read and everything else, that we do allow somebody to swear an affidavit that they're, filling that out for people. And I believe that that's actually on the envelope, but I'm not positive. I'd also like to see state enrollment and ERIC be required for this program to be active. As I pointed out, my sister has lived out of the state for 20 years and she's still an enrolled voter in Maine. So that's a concern for me that we really shouldn't have a program like this in place if we're not doing ERIC and are continually enrolled as a member in that system. And then if a ballot is incurable or doesn't get returned, I'd like to see that kind of information put into the AVR so that I know what's happening with ballots. Right now, we can see when ballots are requested, when those requests are fulfilled. We also know how that request was made. And we also know when that ballot actually came back. So I actually want to know whether or not those ballots are coming back. And then, because I think this is a lot of work and a lot of things for the Secretary of State's office to do in terms of cleaning up the file and everything else, I'd like to see something like this, the effective date moved from January 1 of 2023 to January 1 of 2024. So that's where I'm at upon looking at this. Thanks.
Thank you, Representative. So just so I can understand, you wouldn't support ongoing absentee ballot mailing. You would just support the sending of applications?
No, I mean, I think that I could go either way on this, but I think that the biggest thing that I would personally need to see is that at least if we do with ongoing ballot sends, I'd like to see that those ballots actually get returned, whether they're marked or unmarked, and that they're not floating around out there. And if somebody's not returning the ballots and just recycling them or throwing them in the trash, I really don't think that person should be enrolled in an automatic absentee ballot program.
Gotcha. Representative Dolph, did you have a question? Yeah, sorry.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Oops. I have to agree with what Brad has brought up and a few issues that Patrick's brought up. He mentioned ERIC, using ERIC. And if we do that, that does create a fiscal note. And I'd like to see if we were to use them, how much is it going to cost us to use them? I feel this bill, there's too many things changing. There's too many issues still to be answered or added into. And with all of this, I can't support the bill until we really have all our ducks in the row. Thank you.
Thank you. I guess Secretary Bellows, can you explain the rationale, I guess if you're aware of it, on implementing in 2023 that the sponsor had put in, and I guess how that plays into the CVR and the voter rolls?
So I can't speak to the sponsor. What I can say is that the Secretary's office would be comfortable with an implementation date of January 1, 2024, if that is the will of the committee and the legislature. I know initially in conversations with the sponsor, the Secretary's office had asked that the earliest implementation date be in January of 2023, because we really see investment in the new central voter registration system as a necessary precondition for state administration of the list. We don't want to be asking clerks to be administering individual Excel spreadsheets of people who are accepted for ongoing absentee status. We think that can be efficiently and effectively managed in the next iteration of the central voter registration system when we have it. But we are equally comfortable. An initiation date of January 1, 2024 would put that into effect for the 2024 elections. It is unlikely that we would see a lot of candidate elections in 2023 because it's an off year.
Thanks. Any other questions? Sorry, I'm getting a little bit of feedback, it sounds like. Oh, there we go. Okay. Any questions, I guess, or discussion going forward for the committee? I think given that we've had a lot of new information provided today and a lot of questions. Sorry, the boxes keep moving on my screen. It may be best to, if people are willing, just to take a little more time and think about all the new proposals that were coming forward today. And just to think more, because a lot of different elements were thrown out today, and we can continue to work with the secretary on the department bill that's coming out on their end as well, because there are a lot of moving pieces in this bill. So Representative McCrate.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I'd like to move to table.
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion to table by Representative McCrate.
Second.
Seconded by Representative Corey.
Third.
Thanks for that. All those in favor of tabling, please. Actually, we'll call the roll if Karen's there, so we can't do it the normal way, unfortunately. Thank you, Karen. Can you please call the roll?
Did you just call us Karens?
Yeah.
Representative Corey, how could you? Senator Lucchini.
Yes, and yeah.
Well. Senator DeChambeau.
Yes.
Senator DeChambeau, yes. I apologize. I didn't repeat. Senator Lucchini, yes.
Sorry.
Senator Farren.
Yes.
Senator Farren, yes. Representative Chiazzo.
Yes.
Representative Chiazzo, yes. Representative McCrate.
Yes.
Representative McCrate, yes. Representative Tuttle.
Yes.
Representative Tuttle, yes. Representative Riley.
Yes.
Representative Riley, yes. Representative Supika.
Yes.
Representative Supika, yes. Representative Wood.
Yes.
Representative Wood, yes. Representative Kinney.
Yes.
Representative Kinney, yes. Representative Harrington.
Yes.
Representative Harrington, yes. Representative Corey.
Yes.
Representative Corey, yes. Representative Dolph.
Yes.
Representative Dolph, yes. 13-0.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Karen. So that's unanimous tabled. We will put it on the schedule when we figure out a time that people want to bring this one back up, and we'll give people time to develop proposals. So in the interim, if you can think of some ideas that you'd like to see, we can work on those, and then we'll probably have some parallel types of legislation coming. It's hard to predict when we'll see them all, but then maybe we can take them all together, so we'll have a better idea. So thank you, Secretary Bellows, for coming in. And with, I guess, Janet, we have a language review, is that right? Scheduled?
Correct. Just have to put it on the right screen or it won't work. So do you see that now?
Yep.
Okay. So this is LD 102, an act to extend the time frame for processing absentee ballots. This is the majority report voted for by 7 members of the committee. If you remember, the bill itself in the text changed from 4 days before the election to 7 days before the election, the amount of time that municipal clerks could spend or could use to do early processing of absentee ballots. This amendment also provides that instead of 60 days before the election, there would be 30 days before the election for notice of the early processing that's going to occur. And so all that does is change the 60 to the 30 twice in this paragraph of current law. And then the summary. There is fiscal information that there would be no fiscal impact.
Great. Thank you, Janet. Pretty short bill. So for those who voted in support of this bill, I think was 7. If you're good with the language, we can keep it moving through the process. I'm on the 7. I'm fine with that. Yeah, unless there's objections from those who voted on that report. And I believe the minority report was odd not to pass. So.
Yes.
Okay, great. So seeing no objections, we can keep that bill moving. And that, I believe, does it for the schedule today. Looks like Wednesday is our next committee day. And we've got a public hearing. We're also going to try to do some of those COVID related emergency liquor bills that we heard this morning so that they can be done in time for the session. We're going to try to have any COVID related things done by the potential for our first session. So 306, 307, 378, we'll have work sessions as well as, I think,
173.
173, thank you.
That's the honor for veterans.
That's at 10 o'clock, Senator, correct?
Yep.
You start at 10.
Yeah, it looks like we start at 10 and then we have a public hearing at 1 o'clock. I'm not sure which bill that one is, but yep. Great. Any questions on schedule or anything? And we'll take time to let everybody work on that bill we just started, and we'll communicate when we can put it back on the schedule. So. All right. Well, seeing nothing else, I think we can adjourn for the day.
Well, Mr. Chair, I just wanted to wish Representative Kenny a good recovery and a quick recovery.
Yeah, you can come around. I stopped my video.
Yeah, and hang in there.
Tuttle. Thank you,
Hang in
Representative
there,
Tuttle.
Mary Ann.
Appreciate it.
Yes, best wishes, Mary Ann, from all of us on a quick recovery. So.
Yeah, it's funny. I feel a little tired today for some reason. I don't know. I've backed off. I'm just taking ibuprofen and Tylenol today, but it's working.
Right. Well, take care, and understandably tired. So, all right. With that, we'll see everybody. Oops.